Hello, everyone, and welcome to Future Nonprofit, a podcast and YouTube channel where we sit down with nonprofit practitioners and industry experts to talk about what it will take to build and scale the nonprofit of tomorrow. I'm Ted Vaughn, partner at Historic, and today we're sitting down with a hero. Jared Walker, founder of $4, is an incredible leader doing incredible things. We would love for you to check out all of the Future Nonprofit episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple, Google, doesn't matter. Join me as we unpack the stories and lessons from some of today's most innovative leaders. So a couple icebreakers, get to know you type things. You studied bartending, as I have understood, way back in the day. So I'm going to assume that you know how to make a drink and that there might be a cocktail that you is your favorite or you enjoy. So let's start there. What is your favorite cocktail to make if you had to make a cocktail?
Oh, man, nothing fancy at all. I am a Negroni, margarita kind of guy. If I'm drinking, it's usually just mezcal or a light beer. So nothing fancy. I'm pretty boring when it comes to drinks that I make for myself.
It's funny how the bartenders I talk to are so tired of cocktails by the time they're off the clock. They just go to straight whiskey or...
I feel like it's funny. I mean, I'm not like some great bartender. I just was, worked in restaurants, served, bartended through when I was going through college and whatnot. But I think, especially I grew up in Portland, Oregon. So it's like, beer city, and we had like a phase of, IPAs where it was just like the crazy hoppy bitter you can get, like the better. And so I'm like, I don't really touch IPAs anymore. And then same thing with like the craft cocktail phase of just like, fancy cocktail bars and all that. And I don't know, just kind of simplify, I guess. Yeah.
Teardrop. I mean, Teardrop's one of the big Portland bars, right? Kind of been on the map for a while.
Yeah, we got some great spots for sure.
Okay, and then I'm curious. You've lived a lot of life. You're doing some pretty heavy things. I imagine there's been a lot of intense seasons in your life. If you were to write an autobiography and give it like a clever title, what would it be? What would that pithy tagline or summary line be for your autobiography?
Oh my gosh. I have no idea. I do not even feel qualified.
There's no immediate phrase or line or idea or tag or mantra that summarizes your life.
Honestly, it would be like, I don't know. It would be, I do not know what I'm doing. Is what it would be.
Like fumbling your way through kind of thing.
Yeah, just a very, very, trying to figure it out as I go. I definitely did not set out to start a nonprofit ever. This was all by accident. So I wish I had some clever thing to say, but it's very boring.
So let's go ahead and dive in. I'd love just to get a summary of what you're doing today and why $4 exists. You don't have to go into all of the background and everything, but just kind of like give me the thumbnail. What is $4? Why does it exist? And what do you guys do?
Yeah, so $4 exists because, right now a medical crisis means a financial crisis. And we are trying to help people relieve that financial burden from a medical crisis. And we're a patient advocate organization that enforces hospital charity care and financial assistance policies. And our goal is to make charity care known, easy, fair, equitable. And right now it's none of those things. And so that's, we crush medical bills. That's what we do.
And the model, the way that you operate, what's the distinguishing or differentiating idea behind $4?
I think that $4 is really built off of, a federal law that is already exists. It's just not utilized at all. So I think that we are able to do a lot of education to help people understand when you get that big medical bill or when you get that diagnosis or whatever, that you don't have to live in fear that, you could lose everything, at least for a lot of people. So I think that we're just trying to leverage existing policies and technology to make these things easy for people understand and to access. So charity care is a federal law that went into place with the Affordable Care Act. If you really want to nerd out, it is Section 501R, and you can read all about it. Nonprofit hospitals, which is most in America, have to have charity care, free or reduced care for people within a certain income range, and that is kind of their way of showing the IRS that they are providing community benefit and worthy of that nonprofit status.
We're going to talk more about the mission and some of the aspects of $4, but I want to get now into your personal story. Knowing what $4 is, there's a reason why you are leading and driving and building this thing. What's your origin story that brought you to this place?
Yeah, the $4. So I mentioned I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and in 2012, so about 10 years ago, my wife and I were sitting at home. She got a phone call, and her aunt had passed away from cancer. And then about 15, 20 minutes later, I got a phone call. My cousin had gone into labor 7 weeks premature, and the baby needed a heart surgery to live. So it was kind of this same day, same hour. We both got news of these medical crises in our family. And I remember hearing conversations of, how are we going to pay for it? And what, and it was like, I don't know, I'm pretty young at the time. So I'm like, really? Like, this is what we're talking about? This is my first run in with the, with the U.S. healthcare system, and kind of realizing that, yeah, you can lose everything if you get sick. And I wanted to help people in that situation. When I first got that call, we were sitting at home in our living room, and I got on my computer and I started looking up medical debt in America, and I saw some stats that just kind of blew me away. And, number one cause of bankruptcy, 65% of bankruptcies in America because of medical bills. And then there was another stat, 78% of these people actually have insurance. So that was shocking to me. And then there was one that stood out. It was 85% of people that declare bankruptcy because of medical debt. It's on bills that are less than $10,000. And that just kind of shook me, because I'm thinking, if you're declaring bankruptcy, like, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I kind of had that realization of, it's not really, for a single mom, kid gets cancer, $5,000. Like, if you don't have it, it may as well be, $100,000. Like, it's just one of the, and that happens so often. So when I saw that number and it wasn't as big as I thought, I think people feel so powerless in that moment of just like, oh, this is too big. Like, what am I going to do? And when I saw that 10,000 number, I was like, oh, I don't have $10,000, but like, I could probably get 10,000 people to give $1. Like, I kind of felt like this motivation of, that is something that I could actually do. And that is kind of what like sparked and it's funny, like, I actually took a little nap. Like, I was sitting in this chair and I like kind of slept, and I dozed off for a second. I kind of woke up and was like, I'm going to do this. Like, it was just this weird, like, kind of dropped on me. Like, yeah, I'm going to do these like small donations and start helping people with their medical bills. It was kind of this realization of, I think I can help, and just kind of diving in foolishly. I'm It was kind of what had the spark, I guess. So originally I started just looking up places, where can I volunteer? Surely I'm not the only person that is going through this right now. Like, other organizations are probably tackling this issue, and I couldn't find any. And I wanted to look into, okay, maybe I could start my own, like, I don't know, charity or whatever. So I started crowdfunding in Portland, Oregon, and $4 was originally $1 for Portland, and people would sign up for small, reoccurring monthly donations as little as $1, and every month pool the money together and pay medical bills for people. And, we'd make these little videos and share with the community. I mean, this was like super grassroots, little bars and coffee shops and donut shops in Portland that are throwing these little events and getting people to sign up for donations. So it was very, very small, and, there's definitely a lot of little stories in there, but like, that's how it started, was a crowdfunding platform to help people pay medical bills. And then, years after that is when we completely shifted into patient advocacy and enforcing this law. So
you didn't set out to be a nonprofit leader and build a big nonprofit and make a huge dent in this issue. Sounds like you wanted to start and just make a change, volunteers show up, and then it's become a thing. At what point did you realize this is a thing? This can be built. There's scale here. This can make a bigger difference, because it doesn't sound like that was what caused you to get started?
That's a great question. I think that there were like several moments when I thought, because originally I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to get 1 million people to sign up for $1 a month, and we're going to give. It's like I had these big ideas of, oh, this could be super cool, and I could do $1 for Portland, $1 for Seattle, $1 for LA, and we can just. It was completely like an unscalable idea that I really liked, this idea of like grassroots fundraising to help people pay medical bills. I think when I first had the idea, I threw like a little benefit concert or something, and I had like hundreds of people show up and news stations show up, and people were kind of like into it. And I think at that moment I was like, oh, like this is an issue that immediately connects. Like everyone knows someone. Everyone knows someone. Everyone has a story. Everyone can speak to this. And has some type of personal experience with it. That is one of the times where I felt like, oh, this could be a lot bigger than what I'm thinking. When I really started to feel like, oh, this is a thing, is when I did make that shift to enforcing the charity care policies, just how quickly I was able to have impact, which I can share that. I probably want to give you a little more context for that if I can.
Why don't we go ahead and go there? Because I'd love to understand some of the journey for you going from I don't want to say naive, but there's this notion that this thing can go viral, right? This thing, and I know you actually had some of that happen with TikTok, but there was a moment where this became a serious full-time job, building and scaling a nonprofit, and I'd love to understand your mindset as a leader. Of something. I mean, when did this become a full-time job for you versus just an idea that you were kind of fanning the flame of and hoping would happen maybe as a small parallel part of the rest of your life?
Yeah, so 2012 is when I had the idea, like April 2012. And then in December is when I threw that benefit concert. And then going into 2013, at that event, I had a bunch of people come up to me and be like, oh, this is so cool. Can I get a tax receipt? Are you a 501c3? And who's on your board? And I'm like, I have no idea what you all are talking about. I just threw this event. I don't know what any of those things are. So I had to take a big step back and write a business plan and get a 501c3 and all that. And there was a handful of moments where I was just like, man, this isn't for me. Like I think I called an attorney's office because I looked at the 40-page application to be a nonprofit, and I was like, I'm not doing that. Like I don't know the answers to these questions. So I, called the law firm, and they quoted me like $8,000 or something to like fill out the paperwork, and I was just kind of like, well, I tried. Never mind. So I there was a handful of things that kind of happened. I got hooked up with this like law firm, like a nonprofit law firm that helps people, fill out this paperwork, and so I took a few years, and it wasn't until 2015. August 1st, 2015, I actually quit my job, and I went for it with $4. It just kind of felt like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go for it. And it's not something that I can kind of, have be a side project anymore, because it's already taken too much time. So that was when I made that shift, and it was a rough start for sure in 2015.
I don't think it's ever an easy start. If it is an easy start, something's rough coming.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the emotional connection for you, because we often talk to nonprofit leaders who the organization and the day-to-day, I don't want to say it sucks the passion away, but it replaces the passion of the founding moment of the nonprofit with the day-to-day grind. There's an emotional connection. There's a story of origin that caused you to do this. How do you keep the passion for it alive still? Do you still have this kind of visceral emotional connection to the cause? Like, what does it look like for you to stay emotionally invested, caring, and connected as a leader? Is that easy, or does it sometimes get lost?
Every month I would go and I would film these short videos and telling these family stories. So I was so close to it. And that was actually something that I've told multiple people. Like, I really didn't ever think about the emotional toll that would have. Just like hearing people at, probably the lowest that they've ever been. Massive medical bills, cancer diagnosis. Like, that was something that I was not ready for. And it was, sometimes it was so heavy. You get out of these interviews and you just talk to these people that are just going through it. So I think that was something, when I was, running around hustling in Portland trying to get people to sign up for these donations, like that was what was in mind, like the people that we were helping and like the real impact. It wasn't like we hope that we can do this one. It's like, you give money, we help people with that. And now, I mean, I still, like, I'll hop on a call with a hospital every once in a while, because we have some special case or whatever that I want to, dig deeper in. And man, I'll get fired up. Like, I get frustrated with the system and the hospitals and the hoops you got to jump through. And I just feel like people need an advocate in this space, and there are not a lot of resources for that. So that is like what keeps me. I mean, every day we have like a Slack channel where we log all of our celebrations, of every time a medical bill gets waived. And I watch that every day, and that is another huge motivator. Like, hey, we just erased $33,000 for someone today, and $5,000. Like, so those are things that, like, I don't feel like, I feel very, very blessed and just like privileged to. That's not something, like, the passion doesn't really go away. Like, I get pretty amped every time I see a number pop up on the screen of someone that's like that's a person that we were able to just help.
What's the story that for you, the thumbnail story that stands out as the most poignant or acute that you would go to, or that you would tell top of mind if you were invited to tell one story?
Great question. Last year I got an email, and it was the mom of a patient that we helped. She said, "Hey, I want to let you know that my daughter had an accident several months ago, and she got the medical bill, and she was crying because she was faced with the decision of, am I going to go to my last semester in college and continue my education, or pay this medical bill?" And she said, because of your organization, here's this person on her graduation day. Like, she graduated thanks to you all, because we were able to get the medical bill waived. And that's one that I share, because I just feel like no one should have to put their education on hold because of a medical bill. No one should have to, skip out on meals or not be able to get a loan or whatever. And this happens all the time. So I think that that's a great example of someone, just like, it's not just about the medical debt relief. It's like what that unlocks for people. Education, being able to, like, thrive through life without this burden hanging over them. So
what was the spark that brought this thing to a place where it had to go into growth and scale mode, or it became a bigger thing than you even anticipated it being? I mean, there was a TikTok video, there was something that happened that I assume in 2015 caused this to become your primary thing.
Honestly, like, in 2015, no. And I think if I were to go back or if you were to ask my friends and family, they'd be like, yeah, Jared probably left his job way too early. So it was like a grind from 2015 to 2019. Like, I took a lot of side jobs. I worked events, bartended, sold beer for a brewery company. Like, I did a lot of different things to try and make money during that time, because $4 was not at a space at all to do that. So it was really like years of these small donor campaigns helping these families. And then in 2019, I went to this networking event. I met an attorney, and he was the first one that asked me, have you ever heard of Charity Care? And I looked into it and couldn't believe it. Like, I felt like a freaking chump, because I had been paying medical bills for all of these people that would have been eligible for free or reduced care if I would have known about these programs. So I was like super motivated to switch the organization over to doing that. And it's like, hey, I know a ton of people with medical bills. I'm going to start digging into these policies and filling out the paperwork. And in a few months, I got over $1 million of medical bills to disappear for people in the Portland metro area. And that was like, this is bigger than I think. Like, how did I just do that? I spent years trying to pay people's medical bills, and I didn't come anywhere close to paying off $1 million for people. And then I got that amount eliminated in less than a year. I couldn't believe it. So that was like a aha moment for sure. And then from there, it was just shouting from the rooftops, like talking to all these reporters and journalists and news stations, and like you all don't get it. Like, there is this program that exists. Like, this is the best kept secret. Why isn't anyone talking about it? And then that is when the TikTok video happened.
Did that aha moment shift the fundamental mission or purpose of $4 in any meaningful way, or did it just kind of give you added amplification or acceleration as to the mission from the very beginning?
No, I think it completely shifted. I mean, like, we went from small grassroots crowdfunding to patient advocate enforcing policies. So, like, I completely threw out all of the monthly videos and stories of these families that we were helping one by one, because I was able to help, a dozen families, at a time, because it was just a lot less burdensome than trying to like raise the money for it. So that's when it became $4, and it was bigger than $1 for Portland. And we were, I was helping people in Oregon, Washington, California. So it was a complete shift.
The TikTok video seems like it was a significant moment, or continues to be a significant moment. Talk to us about the journey of getting into a TikTok video. Was that strategic, intentional? Was it just throwing mud against the wall and it worked? I mean, how did that play out?
Yeah, so there is like $1 for Portland, like pre-2019, and then there's $4 of like trying to advocate for patients. And the TikTok video, I hate saying this and it sounds so silly, but like that was everything that like put us on like a rocket ship over the last couple of years, because I was helping people in the Pacific Northwest still. It was just me hardly being able to take a salary. There were multiple times where I was like, I don't know if I can continue doing this. And my little sister was in town for Thanksgiving. She said, Jared, you should get on TikTok. I think people would really like it. And I was like, no freaking way am I getting on TikTok. Like, I don't want to get on another social media platform. I already am terrible at like Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Then she was visiting again during Christmas, and she reminded me again. She said, hey, you need to post on TikTok. And I was sitting at my office one day, and I downloaded the app, and I saw that video that probably everybody's seen, the what's a piece of information that feels illegal to know. And when I saw that stitch, I was like, I know the answer to this. Like, I can answer this question. So I stitched a video. This was like Friday night. I, told people what Charity Care was, how to access it. And at the end of the video, I say, if you need help, shoot me a message. And I put my phone down and went to sleep. And the next morning, I had a bunch of messages. And I'm expecting that video to go to like 50 people. It had been seen like 30, 40 million times by the end of it. So it was like $4 was a one-man show like in Pacific Northwest, and overnight it became a national organization. We had tens of thousands of people reaching out for help, and it was like a scramble trying to figure out how we were going to scale.
And what year was that, the TikTok video?
That was January of 2021.
Not that long ago. I mean, this is still a pretty recent. So you've had to. So let's talk about the journey for you. So you're the leader of this thing. It's working. TikTok's just given you massive miracle grow, right? It's just like put nitrogen in your nitrous oxide or whatever that stuff is in cars they flip on. What do you do? How do you what I assume it was overwhelming. What was it? Were you more inspired and elated than overwhelmed and scared, or how did you kind of rise to the moment? And what's the last 2 years of that journey been like?
It was definitely panic. It was definitely like at the beginning. I woke up and the video had like 50,000 views, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And I refreshed it like 5 minutes later, and I had 100,000 views. And I was like, oh, this is like happening. Like, what? I've never experienced anything like that. And then everyone was reposting. Like, every single big account was reposting the video. And then it moved to, a woman posted it on Twitter. And the Twitter video alone got like over 10 million views. And there was like celebrities retweeting it and all this. Then it was NPR, BuzzFeed. Like, it just went crazy. So I was panicked. I called my niece, who's like 15, and I was like, I need you to get on here and start responding to these DMs, because I like can't do it. So we're scrambling, trying to figure out. But the big thing was, can you help me with my medical bills? And like, trying to figure out like, well, what hospital are you at? Like, I didn't have an intake form. Like, I had tens of thousands of intakes, but they were all DMs, which is not sustainable. And so what happened is I got on a podcast called An Arm and a Leg, and Dan Weissman, who's an awesome person in the space, he put out this thing. We got a bunch of volunteers He just kind of put out the call, like, can we help this guy? So we got a bunch of volunteers, and we captured the financial assistance policy data for every hospital in the country, and we put it into a web tool where a patient can go in, put in their household size, income, what hospital, and it will tell them what they're eligible for according to their hospital's policy, and then we can kind of do the rest. So that was like step one, is how can we, like, at scale tell people, can we help you? Can we, are we able to actually assist you with this? And that was a process. Like, I mean, it was TikTok DMs for months. It was awful. It was awful. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question there, but
no, it was a great answer, and it's a great story to hear the personal connection and the 15-year-old and the. I want to keep going, exploring the role of leadership in these moments, because you're an exceptional story of somebody moved in a moment to do something fairly audacious, and then it works, with with this moment of acceleration through TikTok. And now I see you as a young leader having to do things that you probably don't love, that aren't your sweet spot, that aren't life-giving. What kind of leader are you? Are you the vision, passion communicator? Are you the ops systems organization guy? Are you the fundraiser, donor, like development? Like what? Like if you're carving out a sweet spot for what it means to be you in a sustainable way for 5 years, or the next 5 years, what does this moment mean for you? How are you growing as a leader as this thing scales and grows ballistic? Or not ballistic, grows big.
Yeah, I would say that I am being. This is like something that I feel insecure about in the moment, where I'm like, what do I do now? Like, our team has grown. We've gone, in the last 2 years, we have 14 people that are either on, full-time, part-time, or contractors. And I am not the ops guy. That's for darn sure. I'm not a systems guy. Like, I am let's talk about the vision. Let me communicate this. Like, we are still a young nonprofit where the founder's story is still really, really part of the DNA of the organization. And because I am decent at communicating, how I started it all, and I think that this story just connects with people, I've had to become the fundraiser and the speaker and the face. And I am not, that is not my comfort zone. I mean, I feel like it kind of is now, because I've had to do that the last 2 years, because it just kind of got to this point where I need to go and raise a significant amount of money, or we are leaving all of these patients in the dust. So what happens here? And that was a role that I had to step into. But I am absolutely the vision, storyteller for sure. And I had to immediately go, thanks to some, in advice from mentors of go find the people that do the things you suck at, because that was what changed, and absolutely what has caused our growth is other people doing the things that needed to happen.
If you go back over the last 4 years or so, or maybe 3 years, or you could trace it back to the TikTok video, but in this kind of recent period of time, what's the one or two best decisions that you've made as a leader? The things that maybe you didn't even realize at the time were great decisions. And then I want to ask the question on the flip side. What are the things that you, not that we want a Monday morning quarterback, but there are those things that we look at and go, man, in hindsight, I wouldn't have blank. But let's start with the best. What are the things that you feel like you've done the best, or the best decisions that you've made in this kind of season of serious growth and scale?
I think one decision that I was really, really stressing over was we got invited to a nonprofit accelerator program. I didn't know that these things existed. I do not have a healthcare background. I don't have a nonprofit background. So I'm getting into foundations and accelerators and all of these different things that I really did not know existed. And I was really torn up about one that we got invited to, and was talking to a bunch of mentors, and I made the decision to go, and it completely changed the trajectory of the organization. That was one decision. I think the other decision is just to delegate, to accept the things. Like I said, I'm not great at a handful of things, and finding people and just giving them authority, the place to do their thing and get out of their way, because there were a lot of people that wanted to help, and it wasn't like, I am extremely lucky that the people that showed up for $4 were like the caliber of people that they are, because it was moments of like, I need to trust this person to come on and help me with this thing. And, it's a bunch of people that heard me on a podcast or saw the social media. Like, we had so many people reaching out. So it was really like just passing stuff on, let other people take ownership of what we were doing.
And you've now, in that, moved from being a leader of a cause that is solo directed by you to now an employer of people, right? So you're having to lead and supervise and do things organizationally. I'm just curious, how many direct reports do you have currently?
There's like 5 or 6 people that I guess I hate to even use that rule. Like, I really do. I feel like these people are right in there, in it with me.
They're partners more than employees.
Yeah, we have such an incredible team, but yes, I would say about 5 or 6 people.
Okay, same question. Over the last couple of years, what's the decision that you wish you could go back and unwind or do differently?
There was a time where I felt like $4, I felt like every week I was making some like organization altering decision where it was just a lot. And I think that one of the routes that I spent a decent amount of time doing was $4 could be like the one-stop shop for people that have medical bills, not just charity care, but bill negotiation and looking over phony charges or insurance claim, like all these different things. And I think I was just, charity care is our thing. You know what I mean? Like, we are experts in charity care. And I think that when we were getting all this attention, people started asking us, well, hey, I don't qualify for charity care. What else could I do? So then, of course, we start going and finding these resources, and we do become, not experts, but pretty like well-versed in a lot of different things with healthcare. And then it was like, oh, we'll start a program and we can help people like that. And so like we had a whole bunch of these programs, and we just like for a while I lost focus on what the thing that we were really, really good at. And I think that we lost some momentum there of trying to just do too many things. And I think that that's just like, that is a part of who I am. Like, I am probably, an ADD kind of like shiny object. I'm going to chase like, oh man, this is a cool opportunity. And I would say that my team, one of the big jobs is like reeling me in. And I feel like I've noticed that more and more recently, where I'll get excited about something and I'll just shut up for a little bit and think about it before I start, getting too excited. So I think that one of the biggest things I wish I probably could have made a lot more progress in what we're doing now and like our core program than trying to do a whole bunch of other stuff.
How do you keep that focus in place today? What does that look like to protect that focus? Because you're doing something that's so broad, so important, and could go in there could be so much mission drift, even just within the boundaries of medical debt, right? There could be 85 different ways to address that. You're trying to stay focused. How does that focus play out for you today? How do you keep that focus alive and protect from mission drift?
I think one thing would be finding the experts that are doing the things that we can't. So one, like having the resources, having the people that when patients do come to us and say, hey, can you help me with this? We can say no, but they can. That's important. The other thing is I would say that my team would probably laugh at this, and my board would for sure, because it's like, well, I'm still trying to figure that out. Like, how do I not get distracted by these things? I think that having a team that keeps me focused, like that is what it is. And I think that, being told over and over and over again, like, hey, does this align with our core values and goals? And like, constantly reel me in, is like, I can pick up on these patterns and figure out like, okay, I need to, and having the systems people that can document all this, and having, the 3-year strategic plan, and looking that over, and every decision go and say, okay, I know that this is a cool opportunity, but like it does not fit in this document. So like we'll put it on the back burner kind of thing.
You've had this moment where you gave birth to this incredible idea. The idea worked. You dove into it full time, maybe prematurely. You had this moment of TikTok miracle growth and scale. You've got a team. You're wrestling with focus. You're maturing as an organization, right? You're moving into this kind of adolescent season. What does it look like to keep growing? What does success look like for you? Where do you want to see this thing go in 3 years? Give us the 36-month vision. Is it massive growth and scale, or is it just doing what you're doing at the scale you're doing it just more efficiently? What's the vision?
The vision is that $4 is going to continue our mission of crushing medical bills, and we're going to do that on the individual level for patients. But what we've realized is through patient advocacy, we notice patterns. We can see the bad guys. We can notice the bad players in the space because we can see trends of, oh wow, like we have 20 patients at this hospital that are all having the same issue. So now we are using patient advocacy and stories to actually push policy change at the state level and at the hospital level. So we have a bunch of examples of hospitals that, we had a whole bunch of patient stories, and we approached the hospital and said, hey, you're not following these rules the way that you're supposed to, and you need to change them. And we've had success, which it's we want to continue to build that narrative through these stories and help the individual patients, because that's fun. That's impact right now. There are people right now that are struggling. So let's help them, and then let's use that to push for bigger change. That is the 3-year mark to really start, obviously continuing to help patients on the individual level, but to make the system better so that we don't have to do as much of the individual patient work, because there's a lot of opportunity for that.
And there's a data play in that. So it sounds like you're really stewarding your data in this moment. And I'd imagine you've got team members kind of assigned to that, where you're tracking and you're doing your best to tell a story through numbers, given the amount of data kind of running through the organization.
The data is going to be a enormous part of how we grow. The hospital database, having, I don't know, it's over 8,000 hospitals in the country, that having all their financial assistance data and looking at that. And there are a lot of people that are really excited about just having that data available and what that means for, like I said, noticing trends about hospitals, because there's a lot of hospitals that they're either just completely outside of what the law says, or they have things in their policy that they added that they shouldn't have. And then absolutely, especially with media, even so many people reach out and say, hey, we'd love to highlight your organization, but, we're looking for a patient that had, this type of cancer that lives in this state at this hospital. It's so specific, but we can actually just run a report yeah, we got 2 patients. Let's reach out and see if they're willing to share their story. So we want to really amplify patient voices through this, and collecting that data has been really helpful.
There's a lot of advocacy and a lot of critique for the U.S. healthcare system. You have an amazing lens into the U.S. healthcare system. What are your thoughts on it? What do you feel like is the strongest or best aspect of our country's healthcare system? And what do you think is the worst, or the thing that really makes you the most disgusted?
Oh my gosh. This is not a good question for me. I think that my views on the healthcare system in the US have just gotten worse and worse and worse over time. I'm not encouraged by our system in any way. as doing this work only highlights the worst of things. So, a system that just profits so much off people being sick, and a medical crisis means a financial crisis, and you can lose everything because you get sick. And we have all these people that, have millions and millions of people that are on payment plans or declaring bankruptcy for medical bills that they don't even have to pay if they knew about these programs. That, I don't know. I could talk a lot about the bad, and that is just way too big of a conversation. Happy to have it, but it's we get into the weeds, and yeah. I honestly I hate to be that guy, but for the good, I don't have any. I don't have a list of the good. The good is that we have organizations that are trying to help people navigate such a shitty system. It's I don't know. Obviously, and I don't want to obviously we have incredible nurses and doctors and people that really get it, and the care the like quality of care can be great when you have amazing providers. And we have a lot of great stories about amazing providers and the people behind it. But as far as the system, like, nah.
Does that motivate you? Does fixing the system motivate you as much or more than helping the individuals broken in it?
Obviously, the bigger, more impactful thing is to change system. And I think that the stories is what motivates that. Like, why do I care so much about changing the system? Well, it's because we have all these stories and individuals. So I think that it's like, it's both, but there's a clear winner for like, well, I mean, if I could take years and years to just, individually eliminate medical bills for people, like, no, I'd rather just change the system so people don't have to do it. I'd love for $4 to not exist, but the patient stories are kind of what drive the motivation to change the system.
If you were looking at your story, looking at your journey, all the things that we've talked about, and you were distilling those into kind of key takeaways or lessons for the nonprofit leaders of tomorrow, right? You're in a room full of 17-year-old to 27-year-old nonprofit leaders, all who have stories in different places, verticals, and spaces, but it's like you, right? And they have this passion, this ambition. What would you want to tell them? What would be the thing you would most want them to hear or know or learn from your journey?
I would say it's like Mr. Rogers, like, find the helpers. Like, don't get so bought in on starting your own thing. There's a lot of people that are doing great things, and join them in doing that. I felt like I really wasn't trying to build an organization. I was trying to solve a particular problem that I couldn't find any organizations that were doing at the time. And there's a lot of organizations, and a lot of them do the same freaking thing. So, like, go and join, other organizations. I would also say it can get rough and it can get lonely. $4, like, I think that there was a lot that you sacrifice, trying to start something. And I mean, like, I lived in my in-laws' basement for 7 years. Like, trying to, like, that's not something that I am super excited about, because it's like, well, I wasn't making enough money to do anything else. And, like, yeah, there's a lot of, little details in that, but it's like, it was a grind. And I think this is a terrible answer, but my thing would be, yeah, find the helpers, find the organizations that are doing it. Don't get so bought in on starting your own thing. And if you are going to start your own thing, like, proceed with caution and find mentors and people that have done it. That was like, I felt like extremely privileged to have a handful of people that I could call when, the lows were low, and that's really, really important.
I feel like we've covered a lot of territory. I want to ask you before we close, is there anything about your story and about $4 that hasn't been said that you think would be a really vital contribution? Perhaps a story or something you've learned, or the cost of doing what you've done, anything not told, or any significant turning point in your journey and the journey of the organization?
It's funny, like, your questions and like how you've framed them of like, oh, you're this leader that does it. It's like, I do not feel like that. I feel like I fell into this thing and then I fell into another thing because I fell into that thing. And then, it's grown, and we have had a crazy amount of growth over the last 2 years. But really, it's because I found people that are incredible. And one of the biggest things that changed the organization and like just kept us keep going were these volunteers that worked as volunteers for a year, part-time. Like, we had Lisa Rogers, like, she's retired, saw us on the podcast and reached out, and she gave a lot of her time, and she's a badass. And Elise and Eli, like, there's all these people, Michelle, that like gave a lot. They sacrificed a lot of their time, and they were not getting paid, and they gave, even when we were able to start paying them, it was like insanely discounted rates, and like people just believed in it. So I feel like $4 is here because of them. Like, obviously, yeah, it was my idea, but shit doesn't happen without them, you know?
You know, there's a community piece to what you just shared, and I'm curious to what extent community will play a vital role in Dollar4's future. By community, it could mean the community of volunteers and helping cultivating that community. It could mean a community of people who have been served or found help through Dollar4. What does community mean to you, and what role does it play in the future of Dollar4?
You know, I think that community was everything at the beginning. Dollar4 Portland was the Portland community helping people. And then when we went viral and things blew up, it was the volunteer community. We had like 350 volunteers that reached out and were filling out paperwork for patients and calling patients. And it was clunky as heck. Like, it was not a smooth system. We did not even have the systems there. Everything was like on a Google sheet and trying to figure out, you know, volunteer community, the giving community. Like, we got, you know, a few thousand people that gave small reoccurring monthly donations in Portland, Oregon, that kind of kickstarted this organization. And that is something that I want to figure out. Like, even in the next few weeks, we have like some strategy sessions around that. We have college clubs, UT Austin, VCU. Like, how do we mobilize students and build community? Because I definitely don't want Dollar4 to just be like an online product where you can see if you're eligible, and then we have patient advocates help you through the paperwork. I want to build a movement around this idea of like changing healthcare in the healthcare system and getting people educated about the problems so they can speak to those problems and then help other people. I mean, the coolest stories that we hear, like from our TikTok community and our online community, is, hey, I had a friend, I shared your video, and they just got $10,000 in medical bills waived, you know? So it's not just, you know, oh, I saw the video and I filled that for myself. Like, we have people that, you know, hey, like, we had this young kid, saw our video, messaged us on Instagram, said, hey, I live with my grandma. She had $100,000 in medical bill because, like, some heart condition. She just got a zero balance letter in the mail, like, because I saw your video. Those are the, like, that, how do we build that community? These people that are, like, sharing, you know, spreading the word and helping other people, because it's not, like, knowing the information. I have filled out this paperwork so many times for my own friends, my own family, and like empowering people with that knowledge and all that. Kind of rambling, but I want the community piece to be a big part of our story moving forward.
Yeah, it sounds like between the ongoing stories, the data that you're collecting, your ability to harness and leverage that to really begin to shape policy, you're going to be able to take what you're doing and turn it into a movement and not have it just be an opportunity for crushing medical debt, which is great. I mean, it sounds like you're well on the way. Well, kudos to you, man. Huge fan. What you're doing sounds incredibly inspiring, and I am grateful for your time. For more stories from experts in the industry and to learn how to take your nonprofit into the future, like this video, subscribe to our channel and podcast, and visit makehistoric.com/insights. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Ted Vaughn, and this is Future Nonprofit.